Hey, Taco Tuesday fans, this is Christian Brindle.
And I am Glenn Shelton.
We came together and combined our forces to create something special for insurance agents called Taco Tuesday. Let's taco about insurance. My company, Christian Brindle Insurance Services,
and my company, Lead Heroes,
is here to bring you the latest and greatest news happening in the insurance industry today and eat some tacos while we do it.
If you enjoy the content that we put out on this podcast, feel free to leave us a review or subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes.
Without further ado, let's get into this episode of Taco Tuesday. I kind of wish we could just keep talking about that and that topic into the live, but we probably shouldn't.
I'm going to reference it for sure today. I'm not going to name names, but it will be referenced today. I'm so hungry, you guys. Happy Taco Tuesday. I'm not even going to sauce this first taco. That's how hungry I am.
Okay.
Just going straight in. This is a look at this. This is just a classic.
Yeah. I mean, that looks actually amazing.
It's really good.
All right. So I pinned the live. We should be good. All right. We should be good. All right. We're sorry, everyone. We had to push it back an hour, and then on top of that, we were both late. But it happens. It's part of Taco Tuesday mania at times.
Taco Tuesday mania. I'm curious to see if we get more people jump in because it's later.
So you know what I think it is? Lately, anyway. Justin Brock's brother Johnny's been doing a Clubhouse event at the same time or like right thereafter when we do Taco Tuesday. So like some people are going over and hanging out in there instead of hanging out here.
So Justin Brock's ruining Taco Tuesday.
Pretty much. All right, guys. So as you all know, it's my mission in life to buy the office Mexican food every Taco Tuesday. And we've been doing these random drawings lately because we've been running out of ideas. So we put like a bunch of names into a hat, not a hat, but like a basket. And then I randomly draw. Today we drew Cafe Rio once again.
Oh, you're making my Taco Bell look bad, bro. Oof. I love Cafe Rio.
See, my finger was this close to grabbing Taco Bell. I would have mimicked you. But
after my Victor Rico's, I went my Victor Rico's Clubhouse adventure this weekend. Decided to stick to Taco Bell.
Tell that story real quick.
Oh, I knew you were gonna make me tell it.
Tell the story. It's a good story.
So Christian harasses me to co-host a Clubhouse room with him. So I choose to do so. And then and it was a great room. It was a great room. We had some great questions going. And the question came up, it was, if you were to try to start a Medicare agency and you're trying to scale it to 7 figures, what's the way to do it? Like, what's the quickest way to get there? And I really wanted to participate. I can't believe I'm telling this story. And I wanted to go I went on a taco run. It was late. I don't know what time. It was like 7, 8, 9. It was getting later. So I went to go get food. And then I'm driving home. And I'm so focused on Clubhouse, you guys. This is a warning message, really. That's what this is. Be careful when you Clubhouse and drive.
Clubhouse Addicts Anonymous.
Yes, that should be a Clubhouse. We need a room for Clubhouse addicts. So I'm driving, and I was really close to home. I was probably 2 or 3 blocks from my house, 5 minutes. I was super close. It was later. Nobody's on the road. I'm so focused on answering this question. I'm driving really slow. I'm not being unsafe by any means, but I'm driving very slow. And all of a sudden, as I'm like making one of the final turns to get back to my house, I see lights kick on behind me. Woo! Woo, 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 woo. And I'm like, I'm thinking I got caught holding my phone because, again, it's later at night. I'm probably illuminating my whole face. It probably looks super obvious that I'm on my phone. And so I'm like, great, here we go. And if you were in the room, I said I got a phone call. That wasn't true. I was actually being pulled over. So I'll clear the air on that as well. I was actually being pulled over. Wasn't my phone though. He just thought I was driving slow. I didn't realize how slow I was driving, but I guess I was driving really slow. And so he's just like, what's going on? He's like, he's wanting to check it out, figure out what's going on. I'm just like, hey, I was like, just getting food, sir. Sorry. And, you know, I live in Washington State. Marijuana, cannabis is legal here. And the house, I pulled in front of this house because, again, I'm trying to pull over as fast as possible, you guys. I don't want the cop to think I'm trying to escape. Although it did run through my head. I'm like, maybe I just go home. I'm like, I'm so close. Let's just drive home and then we can have this conversation at my house. Anyways, I pull over in front of this house. This is such a crazy tangent to start this Taco Tuesday, but pull over in front of this house. There is a weed smell in the air. And he comes up to the car and he's like, sir, have you been smoking weed? And then I realized, and then I kind of connected how he was profiling me. I'm like, okay, I'm driving slow. I have a big bag of food next to me in the car. It looks like a late night munchies run to him. And I'm just like, nope, no, I have not been smoking, sir. He's like, oh, must be outside then, I guess. I could tell he's trying to size me up. But long story short, I end up just getting a ticket for my tags being expired. And then I get to go right on my merry way. But it was quite the clubhouse adventure we had last weekend, you guys.
I found it funny because, there were so many instances going on. There were so many chain of events that night that were causing, because it was you, myself, and Justin Thomas that were running this room together about marketing for insurance agents. And Justin, you had to jump off at the beginning. Justin had to jump off at the beginning. You guys both came back, but I ended up being in that room for 6 or 7 hours straight. My wife was ready to divorce me. Right then and there. She was so mad at me. And, by the end of the night, I was getting glares
yeah, I know those. I'm familiar with those.
And I haven't been in Clubhouse since because I'm just worried for my marriage, that it might not continue if I keep clubhousing it up like I was.
Yeah, I more or less, I had a conversation with Scotty today, just briefly. We were chatting on the phone and that kind of came up. I was like, I'm on Clubhouse. I'm like, not as quite as much as I once was. I value my safety of my life. I don't want my wife to kill me.
So guys, today we're going to be talking about, we ran a poll. It started out pretty close, right? About either hiring staff or burning out, one or the other, how to avoid burnout. And, it seemed like it was neck and neck for a while. And then hiring staff and employment kind of just took off, it just it pulled through. It overwhelmingly won. It came hard in the paint in the fourth quarter. And so here we are, and we're talking about employment. Now, Glenn, you've obviously employed a lot more people than I have. So I wanted to start this off by hearing from you and your take on, because you employ people in a multitude of different ways. But I think people would be really interested to hear about virtual assistants and your take on virtual assistants.
Yeah, for sure. I also want to take a second. I'm going to drop a link in the comments. Christian doesn't know this is about to happen, so you're about to see an authentic reaction here from Christian, but I'm dropping a link in the comments. I'm going to tell you what's about to happen. So I have been in the virtual assistant space for almost 7 years since I hired my first virtual assistant. Since I first hired that first virtual assistant, I've grown a team at one point as large as 110 employees, 110 people who worked exclusively for me, which at one point, I didn't think 100 was a lot. You hear about these other companies Amazon, right? Amazon's got hundreds of thousands of employees. So you think 100's nothing, right? But the reality is that scaling infrastructure for staffing like that, it takes a lot of work. And so we've built out all sorts of positions internally here at Lead Heroes over the years. And so what the link I just dropped in the comments is a note of staying up to date and staying notified on our upcoming insurance virtual assistance platform that we will be rolling out this year. And this will, obviously we've been helping insurance agents with callers for a really long time, but we're taking it a step further because we understand that insurance agents struggle with this. They struggle with staffing. This is what we're going to be talking about today. The other part of it is that there's a lot more besides phone calls that you guys need help with. I have people in my company who are helping me run social media. They're helping me run my website. They're helping me with, customer service. So they're doing emails, inbound and outbound. I have management staff who are helping me manage the team. I have Q&A who is kind of the checks and balance, and they're not really technically management. They're quality assurance on the service that we deliver. That's just off the top of my head. That there's all sorts of different positions that you're able to put these people in. And if you train them and you hire correctly, they can really help you grow your business. So if you want to stay up to date on this upcoming service that I think I have a shot to revolutionize the industry. I really do. I'm more excited than I've ever been with this upcoming service. And Christian, I want to give you some credit too, because we spent a lot of time talking about this, and you definitely helped kind of shape my direction on this because I just was kind of, I'm like, is this kind of outside my lane, or does this make sense? Is this where we want to move forward with? So, but yeah, that was my bomb I wanted to drop on you.
Wow.
What do you think?
That's big. That's big news.
I'm excited, man.
I was just reading it while you were talking. I was listening, but I was also looking at the link and kind of reading through it. This is big. I don't think anybody else is doing anything like this.
Not, and even if they were, it's not going to be on the scale of what I'm talking about doing. I'm talking scalable infrastructure for your agency or for your, even if you're an independent agent, scalable virtual assistants who can come in, they can do these things because there's not enough time in the day, you guys. Christian and I were both late to getting on this live. I'm marketing this live today. I'm sending emails out. I'm getting posts out. I'm saying, hey, we're going live at 4. We're going live at 4. Christian and I are both 15 minutes late today. There's not enough time in the day to get everything done. No. Even with all my staff, I'm still swamped, you guys. It's crazy. It's crazy how busy you can get.
I'm really excited to see how this develops. And of course, I know we'll talk about this more kind of offline about it. And it's something that I'm definitely interested in learning more about. Because like for me, I have employees here in the office, not nearly as many employees as you do. And I've always been fascinated with the virtual assistant side of things. But I think the main thing is there's so many people that have an interest in it, but they have no idea how to find that person, how it all works, how to structure the whole thing. I'm in that boat. Because like you said, we've had these conversations offline and I'm just like, I do not understand this X, Y, and Z. And you're taking all that work out of it for them. I think it's huge. To me, it's revolutionary. Like the custom calling campaign is revolutionary because it's one of those things where you're taking the hard work out of it for agents for them, at least anyway. You're taking all the training out of it. You're taking all the guesswork of finding the right people. I think it's huge, and I'm really excited to see how it plays out.
I want to take him. I think this is the right time to do this as well. There's someone else in the industry who helps connect callers with insurance agents, and I'm not going to name this person, but I think most people who watch this or listen to this will know who I'm talking about. And they're providing a subpar service, and it upsets me. It upsets me because you're hurting that virtual assistant. They're getting connected to a position that they fail out of. And now it can potentially hurt them from bringing in an income, providing for their family, putting food on the table. You're hurting that insurance agent because now they can't produce what they were hoping to produce because false expectations were set up. And at the end of the day, like you're really hurting all of it. We talk about on Taco Tuesday all the time, a rising tide raises all ships. Well, the opposite is true too. If you're out there scamming insurance agents, if you're out there misleading, false advertising, just trying to grab the money and run, which is exactly what this person's doing, it has the opposite effect. You're bringing us all down. So, and I want you to know that if this person ever sees this or listens to this, you are bringing all of us down. So I'm putting you on notice right now, sir. But that being said, offering a fully managed service where you can be completely hands off, that's the whole idea here. And whether you go out and hire someone yourself, or you work with someone like Lead Heroes, where we can offer a fully managed service for you, the goal is to eventually be completely hands-free, right? Like you want you want to be able to do something else. This needs to be kind of a repetitive process where these virtual assistants can come in and alleviate that lost time. Like I just said, there's not enough time in the day to get all this done. You need other people to come help you, whether you're hiring someone virtual stateside in the Philippines, or in somewhere else. I mean, all over, right? So
yeah,
I'll get off my soapbox here for a second, but what was the original question? I was so in. I hope that gets back to that person. Well, I really do.
I'm sure it will. I think that person does have spies everywhere.
I'm sure.
And I'm sure that person, and when I say spies, I mean burner accounts that are really that person. But anyway, I digress. So the original question, and there's some interesting questions already in the comments, by the way. Somebody, David Deaton asked about burnout and what do you do to reset when it happens. So I think we should address that a little bit, maybe towards the end. Sure. Because I think there's enough interest to at least touch on it for a minute. But.
I mean, that's such a great topic. It really is a great topic.
Yeah.
And how can you not feel burnout at some point in this industry, especially if you're in it for the long haul? So that's a really great topic.
And let's touch on it kind of close to the end. So we'll come back to that question, David. But the original question I asked was like, give your thoughts on virtual assistants, right? Because it's such a different way of hiring people than maybe what you originally think, right? You originally think, like you hire someone, you pay them X amount of dollars per hour. They show up to work every day at the office, kind of the traditional model. Virtual assistants are very different than that. Talk about that a little bit, if you will. What's the positives? What's the negatives of hiring that way?
So I'll tell you what the biggest so when I'll never forget this, the first mental hurdle that I had to clear personally when I made my very first hire, almost 10 years ago, it's this idea that I can't see this person. I can't physically touch this person, right? Like they aren't there, but you're still paying them and they're working for you. And initially my being kind of cynical, I was under this impression that it's almost like, how is this even going to be possible, right? Like I can't yell at them if they mess up, right? They're not like right here in the room. I can't be hands-on training them like, no, do this, don't do that. And you have to kind of remove that barrier and understand that there's so many software tools that can allow you, and this, again, we are way pre-COVID. It's such a different era now because a lot of these software tools are being utilized by everybody. And COVID obviously really accelerated this. But there's software that they can download on their computer that will allow you to see what they're doing when they're clocked in. There's obviously ways of structuring their compensation to try to protect you as an employer. Obviously, sometimes people do project-based, versus hourly. So that's another possibility. Some people, we got into this on Clubhouse the other night, and this is another great topic, is part-time versus full-time. I've done it both ways, and I totally agree with both what Justin said in our clubhouse room and what you said. You guys were both right, in my opinion. So I don't know. Do you want to get into that really fast? The part-time versus full-time? I think that's a great topic.
I think we can definitely unpack that. I mean, so one thing that I said, and because the question was brought up in the clubhouse meeting that it was asked, is it better to hire someone part-time or full-time? Obviously, I think long-term, you want that person to work full-time, but I would rather hire someone at least starting out part-time if maybe I'm at a place in my business that financially I can't afford a full-time person, right? Let's just say that's where you're at. I would rather have someone there part-time to take the stress off of me if I'm maybe to the point where I can afford them part-time, but I can't afford them full-time, and then grow into that full-time. And then, I think it was tossed back at me. They're like, well, where are you going to find a good person part-time? Well, my assistant, who's still with me today, she's been with me for years. She started out part-time. She started out like 15, 20 hours a week with me. Now she works full-time. She's kind of grown into that role, and it was perfect for what she needed. She's a mom. She's got a husband, a family. So it was actually exactly the thing she was looking for, a job she could kind of come to while her kids were at school. She didn't work Fridays, and she still doesn't work Fridays, but she works full-time hours Monday through Thursday now. But so that type of person, she was somebody that was overqualified for the position, but my schedule, at least at that point in time, and my flexibility with her made the job appealing. She had a background in insurance, working with claims and stuff like that. So that was kind of what the conversation was going for. I agree that long-term, you'd want someone in that position full-time, but you might be able to get from the point where you can only afford a part-time person to a full-time person much quicker if you at least have some help. I feel like the larger your business gets, you can only accomplish so much in 24 hours, as a one-person solopreneur. I think you need help, and any amount of help is better than no help. That was kind of my point.
Yeah. I mean, obviously one of the first things you have to be conscious of, you guys. I'm trying to swallow my burrito here without choking and dying on camera. Obviously you need to be conscious of, that's right. Reppin'. It's Tuesday, y'all. It might be 90 minutes later than usual, but it's still Taco Tuesday. I don't care what time it is. It's Taco Tuesday. One of the first things you have to be conscious of is your budget, right? Obviously, the goal is to spend money to free up time so you can generate more revenue. So ideally, this money you're spending on this assistant should bring in more money, and it should more than pay for itself. However, that doesn't necessarily happen right away, especially if you have to train them. So if you're on a budget and you're being really conscious of your revenue, then I think part-time makes a lot of sense. And then it kind of comes down to hiring at that point. Yeah, if you hire someone part-time who really wants a full-time job, you're setting yourself up for failure, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
They're going to be trying to find another part-time job. Now they've got 2 jobs, or maybe they're still looking for a full-time job. And as soon as they find a full-time job, they quit, and then you're back at square one. So, but again, I have a similar story to you. I hired a few different assistants, but the first Filipino assistant that I hired her part-time. And then after like 6 to 8 weeks, and again, it was a nice way to kind of test the waters. I'm not putting a lot of money out. I'm checking on work ethic, work quality. And so it was kind of a nice way to ease into it. But once I realized I really need full time to get everything I wanted done, then that's when I had that conversation with her. And I said, hey, listen, I really need you full time. I need you to come in, work 40 to 50 hours a week. So, and majority of the time when we bring a new person on now, I look for full time because, again, I kind of want to avoid some of that hassle. But I guess I think the whole point of this is there's always exceptions to the rules. So saying like you have to hire full time and you can never hire part time, I disagree with that completely. I think it's more of a case by case basis where you have to kind of figure out like what are you looking for, and then once you realize what you're looking for, finding that person that will kind of fit into that position.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really going to come down to each individual circumstance, like you said. I think, there's situations where I would rather have someone part-time than have nobody at all, if that's my only options. And there's definitely situations where part-time is not going to be enough, and of course, I'd rather have a full-time employee than a part-time. Absolutely. I feel like it comes down to where you're at that point in time. So like the example I gave on Clubhouse was like, let's say there's an agent that has 300 clients, Medicare clients. Let's say they're in the Medicare space. Let's say they've done a little bit of cross-selling, but not a crazy amount. So if, let's say we're just hypothetically doing Medicare Advantage plans and they're getting renewals on 300 clients, that's their renewal per client, $2,250. So probably be a little bit more than this because I'm sure they did some kind of cross-selling or something like that. But let's say they're around that pre-taxable income, right? It's somebody that's trying to make that push to jump into that six-figure income mark, but they're starting to feel the squeeze of 300 plus people needing their help all the time, right? I was exactly in that place. Like I brought up on a Clubhouse that I didn't hire my first person until I had 600 clients. Big mistake. If I could go back and do it again, I would have hired somebody much sooner, because I felt like I got in a place where I got trapped between 400 clients to 600. It took me so much longer than it needed to get that additional, 200 clients in between, because I was doing everything myself.
On that note, do you feel like you waited to hire because you were looking at that hire as more of an expense and not as an investment in the business?
Yeah, 100%. Like I was, I could have afforded it, but
Right.
I would have felt it at that
Right.
point in time. And it was scary to me, because like I was looking at it like a reoccurring monthly expense, monthly bill,
Right.
but I wasn't thinking about it the right way, at least at that point in time. I was able to get on the phone actually with a person that had done a ton of hiring in our space. And they actually really encouraged me to just take the plunge. Even at 600, I was feeling kind of afraid too, which was crazy now that I think about it. But because I think what they told me that really stood out to me was you're wasting a huge part of your day on minimum wage tasks.
Yep.
Whereas you should be doing stuff that is $100 to $200 an hour tasks, if not more. And my value to the business and the company is to grow the business, and not necessarily to, retain business. And so that was kind of the way that I looked at it after I got off that phone call. And that was really the push that I needed from someone that was really successful, somebody that had been there, to be like, hey, listen, man up and do it. You should have done it a long time ago. And frankly, your business is not going to ever grow to what you want it to be until you just get over this. And I completely believe that.
I think it's kind of it's the same thing, but just looking at it a little backwards. Like taking the time to isolate like the most important activities that only you can do. So if you are an independent agent and you don't have a downline and it's all about just maximizing your own production, your number one revenue generating activity is going to be selling insurance and making that transaction happen, taking a prospect, taking a referral, taking a lead, and taking that person from A to B until they are your client. Like that's literally 90% of your workday should be right there, because that's where your revenue is. Obviously, if you have an agency and you have downline aid, like it changes the game a little bit. But as an independent producer, that's where you need to be. So, what is the average agent? What are they doing? They're spending, I'd say probably, I bet the average agent probably spends half their work week not doing that. I mean, what do you think that's accurate, Christian? About half their work week is spent doing these low level, setting appointments, managing email, checking like application statuses, like just really basic stuff that literally anybody could do.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say at least half the work week is spent doing these menial tasks.
I think for most agents, it's probably right around there. I would say for an agent that was like maybe where I'm at, and I think there's more people in the industry than maybe we realize that are where I was at, 500 clients, 600 clients, 700 clients with no staff. Like I seem to talk to these people all the time, these agents with no staff, and they're making $150 a year, 200 a year, 250 a year, and they're a solo act. For those people, it wouldn't surprise me if it was more like 2/3 of their time were spent doing those low level tasks. Like I think it's probably for a lot of agents 50%, but for some it's probably even more than that, which tells me they are a slave to their business. They have 100%. To work more in their business than on their business. They have to, otherwise it will die because there's no one else there.
Yeah, I mean, that comment you just made there, one of the really great Medicare agents that I've had a chance to work with, I was hanging out with this guy Saturday morning. We're together. There was like a college football game on. We're just kind of shooting the breeze, and his phone rings, and he's like, "Oh, this is a client. Like, I need to take this." And I'm just sitting there thinking, and I'm looking around, like, he's definitely he's a top earner. Like I don't know the exact number, but I'd say probably close to $500,000 in renewals at this point. I mean, we're talking a serious book of business. And here on a Saturday morning, you're taking a customer service phone call. Now, listen, I am a huge believer in handling your clients and getting as involved as you possibly can, but you have to set boundaries somewhere, right? Like you have to draw the line. So like, what, Sunday night at 10 p.m. you're going to take a phone call? Like, I mean, more power to you.
I was that guy,
Right.
I mean, every single one of my clients up until that similar point, about 600 or so had my personal cell phone number.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, which means they all still have my cell phone number. By the way, they call me all the time, but I don't answer. I send a private message to one of our admin staff. I'm like, hey, can you call this person? They just call me. I don't know what they want. I'll send you the voicemail, and they take care of it. And it helps to have
same thing for me. It's the same thing for me. The first several years I started Lead Heroes, it was all just me. I was making all those calls almost all from my phone. And now it's the same way. I'm like, got this message. Please, I need you to call them for me. Forwarding that voicemail 100%.
Yeah. Like, and I think we should mention to this, it helps to have great people, in your business. Like if you have great people that essentially, you're in a position where you can trust them, that your client or your customer is going to be in good hands if they talk to this person. There's no better relief than that. And I would say if you find a great person that takes stress off you like that, be a great employer to them because they know that they're worth that. They know that they're valuable. I can tell you this from first, hand experience. If you find somebody that's great and you don't take good care of those people, they're going to find a better opportunity. You want to keep great people because great people are not necessarily that easy to find. Like I probably pay, I've given my assistant a raise multiple times a year since she's been with me, as I've been able to, the LOA agent I brought in, I hired. I've talked to several people that run LOA shops since I hired her, and I'll talk to them about the compensation model I have for her and the whole deal that we have set up for her. And they're like, you are too nice. You're too generous.
Yeah.
And it's because I want great people around. You know what I mean? I want really, really top level people in my business because I believe that if I'm always looking to undercut people, I'm going to get maybe not the best quality of people that I want.
That's Without a doubt, a fact. And it's funny you mentioned that because we gave out 70% of our employees roughly got a raise yesterday. And that's coming out of the company's bottom line, right? Like that's not just free money that comes out of nowhere, but I look at it literally the exact same way that you just mentioned, because I want them to understand that like you're valued. And again, a lot of it's performance based, right? Like if you're doing well and you're helping the company grow, you deserve kind of a small piece of that, right? Like it just seems a simple symbiotic relationship. What else? There was something else that you just touched on there. I'm trying to think back. Oh, the quality people, right? So, yeah, there's so many bad people I've hired. There's so many horrible people that I've hired over the years. That's another great topic that I think we could get into, is just some of the disasters that maybe we've hired.
Yeah.
And then, so, there's the hiring process, and then there's the training process, and then there's kind of the ongoing management process. It's kind of this 3-step funnel is kind of how I look at it. So in regards to this kind of the first part, the hiring, what's like the worst hire that you've ever made? You want me to go first? I've got a list.
Yeah. Let me think on this. Let me think on this.
I've got a list. The one that comes top of mind to me, and Tracy, I think you're still watching here, buddy. But as far as hiring, if you're working from home, absolutely. Virtual assistants, exactly what we're talking about. Definitely a solution for the work from home agent. So here's kind of a horror story, right? When I was first getting started with hiring virtual assistants and trying to kind of figure all this out, I hired someone, and then they immediately, without my permission, turned around and they subletted, or subcontracted rather, that's the correct word, subcontracted the work out to someone else.
Oh my gosh.
And it took a lot of detective work to even figure this out, because again, this is a virtual assistant. They're not in your office. And I'm realizing, I'm like, wait a second. I'm like, okay, this is you, and this is the person that's actually doing the job. And I just remember being like, why would you, I don't, if you want to do that, just be upfront about it. And then maybe I would be willing to, maybe there's a deal to be had, but to just immediately subcontract it, you don't even do the work. I was kind of shocked by that. I was like, wow, that's creative on their part, but immediately fired him as soon as I figured that one out.
So I've been really lucky with hiring people. And part of it has been, so like the first person I ever hired was my personal assistant. She was very good friends with my dad's assistant at the time, who was working for my dad. And they were really buddy. And that's how I met her. And she was like, I'm spoiled with her. She is absolutely amazing. So currently we have 2 admin staff in our office and an LOA agent. So I only have really 3 employees at this point in time. But I've been really, really lucky with hiring people. The main thing that comes to mind is there's someone that I almost hired 2 months ago that would have been a horror story. I was really, really close. What
kept you? Yeah, I want to hear this. What kept you from pulling the trigger?
Okay, so guy comes in for our LOA position, and he had he had just gotten his insurance license within the last 3-4 months. I'm like, okay, perfect. He's a new agent. We were roughly around the same age. We kind of hit it off. He comes in with like a LeBron James mask, and I start arguing with him that Michael Jordan's better than LeBron, and he's like, that's a bunch of bullshit. And like we just kind of hit it off. We just got along. I was like, I like this guy, and so I start thinking about hiring him. And then what happens is I was like, and my wife says, you should have him back in for a second interview. I said, good idea. So I have him come back in for a second interview. This is what gave me the red flag. Because I was thinking about hiring him after the first interview. Thank God that I didn't. So what happened was he comes in and I start asking him some specific questions about sales and things like that. And he's like, well, He's like, as long as the leads I'm working are actually going to be interested, I'm cool with that. I'm like, what do you mean actually going to be interested? So right there, my antenna go off, and
Oh no.
I'm like, what do you mean? Well, he's like, I didn't really tell you this before. Anytime someone tells you that in an interview, it's never a good thing that's about to come out of his mouth. And he goes, I didn't tell you this before, but I was working for this other group, and we were able to do a lot of cold calling on businesses. We're selling group insurance, and he's like, the leads they give me, only like 1 out of 10 was even interested. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, welcome to the real world, boss.
Yeah,
I'm
serious.
like,
Yeah, seriously.
and so he had this really, once we started really digging into it, he had this very negative connotation about sales. I could just tell he had never really done sales in his life to the point where and so I kind of started getting this vibe about the guy that he was expecting to be an order taker. I'm like, that's not the position here. I'm like, your job is to sell. Your job is to turn maybes into yeses.
Yep.
And so what I did next was I decided to, because that interview gave me more red flags. So I did a background check on the guy.
Oh, here we go.
The background check comes back to me. He has a felony on his record in the last year for beating the living hell out of his girlfriend.
Whoa.
So
that's terrifying.
I sent him a text. I'm like, what up, dude? I'm like, because he just got his license. I figured if it was anything too bad, we wouldn't have been able to get his license, but they granted him a Utah insurance department license with that on his record.
That's crazy.
So, and there's certain insurance companies I know for a fact would not take him. Like, I don't think United would let him contract, which is a big problem. But anyway, so I give him a chance to come back in and explain the situation to me. And the explanation was actually worse than me receiving it come back. Comes in, tells me this story.
He took my tacos, bro. What was I supposed to do? Just walk away?
To make a long story short, what he told me was they were driving down the street. They're having an argument. His girlfriend gets crazy, tries to, grab the steering wheel, pull it off the road. He gets out of the car, walks over and starts choking her until the police come. Then she files a restraining order against him. Then like 3 months later, they get back together. So I'm like,
oh my God.
Like, it was just like, it was horrible. And then she's like recording him in the house, has cameras all over the place. Like, it was like Jerry Springer. I felt like I was in a Jerry Springer episode. And I told him, I was like, and then 2 days later, I link up with Tara and the rest is history. Tara's here now. But that I was this close to hiring this guy after the first interview. And I just am so glad my wife had the wisdom to be like, you should do a second interview, and I thought to myself, I'm like, well, I already did the interview. I mean, what am I going to learn from a second interview? Apparently I learned a lot, which started a breadcrumb trail. And, it would have been a nightmare. It would have been a disaster.
Can't believe I hadn't heard that whole story. That's great. I feel like you had told me that you like almost hired someone and you're glad you didn't, but I don't think you'd told me that's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, but I've been very fortunate, very lucky with the people I've hired so far. I mean, obviously I worked with my dad for years where he hired people that weren't so good, but nothing crazy. They were just like, maybe lazy or mouthy or whatever the case might be. I don't think that we've ever had anybody that was like horrific. My dad did tell me this story one time when he was getting started. One of his first people he ever hired for his business. He fired her after the first 4 hours of being on the job. And, it's because, she was bossy, her personality just didn't mesh. He just felt really sick to his stomach about hiring her after she started her first day. So he takes her aside and, starts telling her, be like, listen, I don't think this is going to work out. And she starts to smooth talk him. And she goes like, well, I just want to tell you something. She's like, I think you're charming. And anyone that knows my father knows he's not charming, like at all. Like, if you don't think I'm charming, he's worse. And so that right there, he was like, no, you don't. Get out, kind of thing. And I think we've been pretty lucky with people, though. I really do.
Yeah. It is a risk, you guys. Like, it's not, there's no guarantee. Like, we have, even like at Lead Heroes, we have so many like checkpoints along the way now. Like we have a whole system in place. Like we bring someone in, they get interviewed. Then we're going to go through like an onboarding process with them. If they, they have to, their application has to clear. So their application has to be like, oh, we like this one. Then they have to go through an interview. They have to pass the interview. Then they go through an onboarding process. Do you have the right equipment? Do I feel like you can do this position? And then after that onboarding process, then there's kind of this probationary period where they come in, where they understand that really for any reason at any point in those first, 30 days, 60 days, we could terminate the relationship. And a lot of that's pretty standard, but there's no guarantees. So there is a risk. And I want that to be clear to everybody too. Like it's easy to sit back and say, oh, just hire 20 assistants and your whole world will change and everything's better. Like yes and no, like you can get there, but it's going to be a process. I didn't get to 100 people in a year. You're looking at 6-7 years of growth before I even approached 100 employees. Yeah. And it can definitely be messy. You have to kind of learn as you go. So one thing I feel like you, Christian, specifically still have a lot of tasks that you're probably doing that you could outsource.
Yeah, I think
you feel like that
right about that. And we've talked about this a bunch of times. Yeah. Like I think it was like a month or two ago, you called me up on a Friday and I'd sold like a handful of apps that day. And I was like sheepishly talking to you. I was like, well, like I was like admitting something I did wrong to my parents or something. And,
Christian, what did you do today?
But it's true, like my time at this point, like early on when I was hiring the admin staff, my time was more valuable than customer service. My time was better spent selling. Now my time is better spent not even selling. I can do even more valuable things behind the scenes. And that's why, we're starting to hire LOAs, for that reason. So it's an evolution, like you said. It doesn't happen overnight, but I still have, like, in a perfect world, I would like for us to have a content manager in office. I would like us to help me with that because we do so much content. I feel like we could do even more if we had a person for that. I would like to have a contracting specialist in office because I freaking hate dealing with contracts.
That is a great, for an agency owner. I know for a fact that is a key. I mean, you could argue that getting them contracted is going to bring the revenue in, but making those phone calls, going through paperwork, checking on out, like it's all busy work. It's all busy work at the end of the day. And I've, again, going through that contracting process, I know how much can come up. Like, oh, well, you didn't fill out this part, or, oh, well, your out of state license didn't come back and you said you were licensed in this. Like there's a million things that could come up and slow you down. Yeah. And like I'm not going to harp anybody for selling insurance, dude. Like you're generating revenue. But yeah, I mean, the worst thing you could possibly do is trap yourself in that prison, which honestly, I didn't really want to get into burnout, but it's kind of hand in hand because when you trap yourself in these sorts of positions where you are the only one who can do these tasks, that's ultimately what kind of feeds into this burnout is, you're stuck doing something that you don't like, that's not making you money. And you go home at the end of the night and maybe you're sitting there wondering, like, what did I even do today? Like you're exhausted. I mean, I know I've been there, before I had any help on the front end of Lead Heroes. Cause again, I was taking all the phone calls. I was handling all the emails for the first several years. I'll never forget, we hit like a record of inbound. It was like over 40 inbound calls in one day. And I just remember it was like 8 o'clock at night, and I was sitting there like I hadn't eaten anything all day. I had literally been just handling all of these phone calls all day, and, emails, trying to manage the business. And it was just like, I was at such this peak of unhappiness, because it was like, I felt stuck. I felt like I was doing these things that weren't really making the company money or making myself money. So I think that kind of does connect here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I think it's relevant to talk about because I was feeling some heavy burnout over the weekend. Like I really was, like I part of it is my own fault. Part of it is my own fault. I love to fill my plate with tasks and projects and things I want to do. And to me, usually it's an exciting thing for me to be like, okay, how much can I actually do? Like
Right.
one thing that I think a lot of people, commented on, because I finally saw my Medicare Con speech on video yesterday for the first time. And one thing I talked about on there was, last year I put out almost 300 YouTube videos, 90 plus podcasts. We did 20 Taco Tuesday streams. I published 2 books. I put out 160 at the time. It's 180 now, video course, all in a year.
Insane.
And, and so I was going through, and
during a pandemic, during a global pandemic.
Yeah. Like it was, like last year, really, I've always worked incredibly hard, but really ramped it up. And, now I'm trying to put together another course, a content creation course. We have more agents we're working with than ever. So I'm doing something agent related, it seems like every day, whether it be a training or whatever it might be with somebody. I got the new agent in office, so she's doing great, but she still needs my help sometimes, from time to time, but she's done very well. Like I'm very pleased. She's farther along than I thought she'd be at this point in time. But I don't know. I was just feeling really, really burnt out over the weekend. And I got to a point where I came in every Saturday. I come in and I film about 8 to 10 videos, eight every Saturday. People don't always know that. But that's when I'm putting out videos throughout the week, they were all recorded in a day, like in one, swish. And I came in on Saturday.
Swish.
Kobe.
Yeah.
And I came in, I recorded like 2 videos on this past Saturday. And I was just like, fuck this. I was like, I do not want to do this today. And I just was like, I felt mentally defeated that day.
What'd you do?
I drove around for 3 hours and listened to music and just looked at the sky for a few minutes. Like I went to the park, looked at the sky. Like I just was like, my head felt like mush. And last week was an insanely busy week, so that probably had something to do with it. But yeah, man. I mean, it's people started asking, how do we overcome burnout? I think the only thing you can really do is, as you start to scale and as you start to grow, like you said, don't be afraid to delegate tasks. And sometimes I am, and don't be afraid, it's better for you to build a business that's an organization instead of just being a one-man show. It's never sustainable. It's never scalable. And I think for me, my goal from now until AEP is I want to bring on 2 or 3 more staff members, at least in our office. And I think we can do it. But I feel like the main thing is you got to give yourself a rest. You got to give yourself a break. You got to give yourself some time to get yourself emotionally right. Yep. And that's kind of what I needed this past Saturday. And so that's what I did. Instead of making videos, I just took some time to myself, and I think it helped. It helped me just breathe a little bit.
Are you at the point where you almost feel restless or guilty maybe when you take time off or away from the business?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, this past Saturday I didn't, because I was just so done with it. But normally I would, because I have this target for myself that I want all these content. I want all of our content to flood out over the course of the week. And that was like this week specifically, we only have 2 videos that are coming out this week. Is what it is.
Oh, no, Christian, we need 10 videos this week. What are you saying?
no podcast this week, none of that. Like it just didn't get done. But I feel like, like every year after AEP, I always try to take 2-3 weeks off. And I feel like you just got to do it. You just gotta give yourself some time to just recharge. And then yesterday, my wife had some, minor surgery on her foot and she was having trouble recovering. So I stayed home yesterday. We rescheduled all my appointments. I stayed home yesterday. I just played with the baby and,
She's not a baby. You can't call her a baby anymore. She's past one.
She's a
I have a baby.
baby.
You don't have a baby. Get out of here. What are you saying? You have a child.
I'll call her my monster, the little monster.
There you go.
No, but I stayed home, played with my daughter for the day, gave my wife some time to just stay off her foot and let herself recover. And the weekend combined with that, like I came to work today feeling really recharged. And I think sometimes that's all you need, it's just that time to just unplug.
Because I'm kind of trying to like unwrap this for myself. If it sounds like I'm prodding you a lot, I think anyone who has started their own business, who is a solo entrepreneur, I think there's a lot of people that fit into this category. And I resonate with a lot of what you're saying. And I think what happens, just, whatever you think about this, tell me, but I know I'll set arbitrary deadlines on myself. It's very similar to you saying on Saturday, I have to come in my office and I need to shoot 8 to 10 videos. You don't have to. I'm sure it's beneficial. I'm sure it helps, but I think you're setting an arbitrary deadline on yourself. And I think it kind of starts to weigh. And most of the time, yourself, you're the biggest critic, right? Like you're going to be more critical of yourself than potentially anybody. So, this also ties back. Part of the reason if you guys watched my autobiographical episode where Christian really just tore me apart. The reason,
Glenn.
yes, unpack. It's like the Britney Spears documentary, but my own. The reason I got into virtual assistants to begin with was a book called The 4-Hour Workweek. I really wanted to start my own business. No idea like how or where. This was prior to insurance, but I read The 4-Hour Workweek, and that's when it really connected for me, where I was like, oh, I can hire someone and they don't have to be in my office. In fact, I don't even need to have a real office. I can go completely virtual and run a whole company virtual. And that book, even though it is 10 years old, 12 years old now, it's still, the principles are sound. I highly recommend it, you guys. Yeah. But Tim Ferriss, I think the very start of it, I need to go back and reread it, but I believe the very start of it is also, ironically enough, this premise. He's talking about how burned out he is.
Yeah.
He's literally talking about how like he was working so much. He had like the love of his life. He was working so much that like his girlfriend, fiance was like, hey, maybe we should go on a trip, or maybe you should take some time off. Like you're kind of driving yourself crazy. You're working 60, 80 hours every single week, which I resonate with so much.
So do I.
But he ends up he ends up losing that relationship. But after he lost that relationship and then things got even more stressful, he hits a breaking point. Spoiler alert. Which it really isn't a spoiler since it's basically the title of the book, but he hits this breaking point where he's like, why can't I travel? Like, why can't I go and do, and someone else is handling the day-to-day in my business? And, he was terrified. He really was. He was very scared. He was running a very successful company at the time. It was a supplement company. I think he was making like over $1 million a year. But he just got to the point where he said, screw it, I'm going. And that's where this whole 4-hour work week came from for him. It wasn't about not doing the work. He's a workaholic. He'll work 100 hours a week if you put him in a room and just keep feeding him. Like he probably would never stop working. But it's this idea that, and it's just kind of funny how well this ties all of this together today is, you don't have to work yourself to the point that you're broken. You don't have to work yourself to the point that you have burnout. Christian took yesterday off completely, and it wasn't Christian that moved all of his appointments for him. That was his assistant. I have done the same thing many, many times. Hey, you guys, something came up. I'm not going to be available for the rest of today. If anybody calls in and it's an emergency, they need to talk to so-and-so. If someone wants to talk to me, I'm not going to be available till tomorrow. And then being able to just literally set the phone down and be done with it and take a step back. And you know what? If you lose business because of that, you lose some business because of that, but it's not the end of the world. I think overall, culturally, we need to be in more of a longevity game. This isn't about hustling till the weekend, trying to grind and make $20,000 this week. This is longevity. This is our lives. This is our livelihood, our families, our businesses that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So I think, avoiding burnout and hiring assistants actually goes quite hand in hand.
Yeah, I think so too. I think, I felt like we couldn't get through the episode without talking about it because they're so closely related. And there's so many things that like we haven't yet to touch on yet. I know some people were interested in knowing, like, do you give benefits to your employees? Do you give insurance? Do you do this? Do you do that? Like, for me personally, I'll answer that for you. No, I don't. It's because this is a great place to work. Yeah. All of my employees can get it somewhere else. Like, they just have other means of getting it, or, but no, we don't offer our employees benefits, at least not right now, maybe at some point, but we're not there yet.
I actually got the same question. Someone messaged me on Facebook within the last week, and they just point blank said, "Hey, do you buy your Filipinos health insurance?" And I was like, "No, I don't buy them health insurance. We have, part of the compensation, they get a bonus depending on the time of year. And that's really designated to cover stuff like health insurance. And I'm sure it's more or less the same for you, Christian. Your compensation that you're giving them is designed to help them afford things like health insurance."
Yeah. Like, our LOA agent that's been working with us, Tara, I told her, I was like, when she first started, I'm like, you have this salary, it's X amount of dollars every month, but this is a $10,000 a month gig. It is, because you're going to have so many opportunities to make sales. Like yesterday, I'm not here and I'm not at the office. A referral calls me. My assistant instant messages me on my phone because I have the app for it, for our thing we talk to each other on. Yeah. And I sent it back. I'm like, give it to Tara. Give it to Tara. I'm like, that's what Tara's there for, to write apps. So I don't have to do as many. And so, but that's, that's kind of the, in my opinion, the way you should look at it. Like there should be so much other benefit in the business that it's just not that big of a deal. And I don't think any of my employees look at it as that big of a deal. Like my assistant, she bought dental insurance through me the other day. Like I didn't give it to her. She bought it from me.
Right.
She just came in one day. She's like, I need dental. She's like, can you hook me up? I'm like, I think we can do that. And she's referred her family members to us, family, friends, all that stuff. And I give her bonuses for things like that. If she brings in customers and things like that, like there's incentives put into it. And then, we have like bonuses throughout the year. And so we take good care of our people. I think that's really what matters. And I feel like if we didn't take good care of our people and there was no benefits, then it might be the point where it was like, well, what the hell? But that kind of circles back to taking good care of your people, and the rest will kind of figure itself out.
I think culture, you want to have a good culture, which is right there. I think that that's the word I think you're even looking for. It's, are they happy? Is it a good place? Like, is it a good work environment for them? And virtually, I have to do the same thing. Virtually, I have to create culture. And the tough part for me is, even though I don't live in the Philippines, my team would get together a lot, but because of COVID, they haven't been able to get together. And so I've really had to work on virtual culture. And it's a lot tougher than it sounds. It's kind of, I mean, we've seen the same thing happen over here in our industry. I mean, like the virtual cocktail hours that we were doing, I think that was awesome. Building that type of culture. I could probably talk about this subject for 10 hours. I could probably talk about staffing, honestly, staffing and burnout. But I do want to be sensitive to your time, Christian, and my own, and my 3 children who are probably ready to come in and jump on me and punch me in the face. But yeah, let's go through some final thoughts and on burnout, hiring staff for your agency or for your business. I'd love to hear, kind of what your thoughts are, Christian.
Yeah. So my final thoughts, I feel like when it comes to staffing, burnout, all that stuff, because I think, they do go hand in hand. I feel like for staffing, I think there's going to be levels to this, right? I mean, in your business, like if you're a brand new agent and you're watching this, there's just no way you're going to be able to hire staff, to me, right? Like it's just, you have to be able to walk before you can run, crawl before you can walk, and all that stuff. Like you just have to get there when you're at that point in your business. Like I talked to an agent this week, actually not this week, it was late last week. And they were like 3 months in the business, had like 25 clients, and they were talking about an assistant. I'm like, you're nuts. I'm like, you're insane. I'm like, you don't have enough work for them to do, first of all, and I'm like, and you're nuts, unless you have some other source of income that you're not telling me about. Like, don't worry about it right now. There's levels to this, but when you get to the point where you feel like you're being squeezed, and if you feel like you can afford it, I would rather hire too early than too late, personally, just with my own experience. Now, of course, when I say hire maybe too early, you feel the squeeze, but you can still pay your mortgage. You can still buy groceries. Like you're not preventing yourself from what you need to survive, but you feel the squeeze every month. That's what I mean by that. That's taking a risk, of course, like Glenn said, but I would rather hire earlier than later, because if you wait to the point where you're later on, you can end up like I did at that one point where it probably took a couple of years for me to get to where I could have gotten in a year, in terms of the growth of my company. So that would be my final thoughts in terms of burnout. I feel like don't be afraid to delegate tasks, and don't be afraid to set boundaries. That's something that I have not been good at, and I'm getting better at is setting boundaries, and essentially not looking at my phone past a certain time and everything like that. If someone slides in my DMs at midnight and asks, what's the commission for Manhattan Life? You know what I mean? Like I need to just disconnect. And I feel like that's what a lot of people need to do too. And I think it helps you stay more sane.
Yeah, that's great. You really hit everything. I feel like, especially the burnout. So that's it. Like you could hire, I mean, I think I'm a great example of this is, I have like unlimited resources when it comes to hiring assistants. Like I can find just about anybody I want for any position I need. But when it comes to burnout, that's something I have to personally kind of know, okay, I need to take time off. Like I need to take an extra day, or I need to quit early today, cut out a few, like that's something that you really have to do yourself. You have to set your own boundaries. I think that was a great point. When it comes to hiring, you guys, like I mentioned, there's many different steps in having a successful assistant or a successful virtual assistant. Take time interviewing and hiring the right person. Christian talked about this today, which I thought was a great point. If you hire the wrong person, it's only going to go bad. There's no way really out of that situation. So, hire slow and fire fast is kind of the cliche term, but it is true. So, take your time, interview, make sure you know the type of person you're looking for. So go through that interview process. Once you bring them on, make sure you train them. This is another part that I feel like a lot of people miss. They expect someone to come in as an assistant, and they think that the assistant can read their mind. And this is something I struggled with a lot early on, is I thought, hey, you're here. I'm paying you. Go, 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 go. Do.
Right.
Right. And you're like, come on, I'm here. Like, yes, let's go. Now, like, I used to literally think, you guys, I could hire someone on Monday and by Friday they should be ripping and roaring and taking buildings down for me. And I think so differently today. When I bring someone on, there is almost 30 hours of training videos that I put them through. Then there's an onboarding process where essentially I have a management member that is assigned to them that is kind of very hands-on for that initial 1 to 2 weeks. Like anything goes wrong or any questions, and then the training wheels come off, and then probationary period, 30, 60, 90 days, depending on what the position and situation is. And I'm looking at it like this is an investment, and I might not see a return right away. And in fact, I might hire someone, pay them for 2 months, and then they fail out. And now I'm right back at square one. But understanding that that's part of the process, like that's really just the game that we're all playing. Nobody bats 1,000, right? Nobody hits every single pitch that they get. So I guess, just kind of stressing. Now you're watching, Scotty. Shame on you, Scotty. You were supposed to be on sooner. I'm wrapping up now.
And yes, you did miss the dab.
You did.
Actually, there was no dab, but
now there is.
now I want you to go back looking for it.
Yes.
Go back to the beginning looking for it.
Scott, I was telling Scotty that I want to have a taco eating contest with you at some point where we get
do it. We need to do it. That would be epic.
I'm thinking soft tacos. That was really my final thoughts. But my final thought is Christian and I need to have a taco eating contest. And Scotty said that he thought that would be some of the greatest. I think we just get soft tacos from Taco Bell.
Mm-hmm.
I think we each get, I don't know. How many do you think you could eat hypothetically?
So here's the thing. There's a balance here because I have to starve myself all day, but not so much that my stomach shrinks.
Yeah, you can't starve yourself. You've got to stretch it. I
have to like snack. I have to snack on chips all day and that's it. And like a carrot or two here and there. And to keep myself hungry, but not, shrunk. I think I could probably eat those soft tacos they're not huge. I could probably eat 6 or 7 of them, maybe.
I think I could get to double digits, bro.
You think you could?
I could get to 10. I think it
maybe I could too. Maybe I could too.
The first 5 would be fine. And I think the back 5, I would hate everyone, including myself, every taco after that. But maybe that's our live show. Maybe we're doing a taco eating contest when we meet up this year and do our live show, which is definitely
we should do that. That would actually be a great idea.
That would be hilarious. Dude, we should do over under. Get a betting pool going. See who can eat the most.
I love it. And by the way, you have to drink nothing but Baja Blast. You can't drink water.
It's like milk. You drink milk with your hot wings. You drink Baja Blast with your Taco Bell soft tacos.
Our unofficial sponsor.
Does anybody have? I need to connect to Taco Bell. If you know someone who knows someone, I want a Taco Bell taco eating contest sponsorship, you guys. I don't feel like I'm asking for much here. At least give me the tacos for free.
Do we have time for one last question?
Yeah, take it away.
So Matthew has a question. He asked in the comments, what do you think about a business loan?
What do you think about a business loan? Kind of a loaded question because my first counter question to that would be, well, what's the money for? Right?
Because they're very open-ended question.
Yeah. I mean, a loan for, hey, I'm going to Vegas this weekend and I'm going to write it off. Right. Like
for hiring and marketing, he said.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for hiring. So something because I took some loans early on. I took some loans early on and I didn't necessarily have the sort of direction that I do now. And I didn't have the sort of like finances mapped out that I do. Now if I were to take money, it would be like, okay, how much am I taking? What am I using it for? What's that monthly payment going to look like? When am I going to pay it all back? Like I would map it all out now, A to Z. And then I would make my decision after I have it all mapped out. Like, can my cash flow handle it? Do I really need the money? Is the money really going to get me to A to B faster? Or am I just being lazy? Like it depends how early you are too. I mean, if you're brand new, I don't know, maybe not.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think? It's kind of a tough one.
My first reaction is high risk, potentially high reward, but high risk. And I think you nailed it. I mean, you have to really have a fine-tuned plan, right? Like if you're just starting an agency and you're just you're still learning a bunch, I would be scared as hell to do that. Because I know when I first started my business and my agency, I barely knew a thing. Like if you asked me what a premium was, I probably would have given you the wrong answer. Probably. I was 20 years old, the kind of thing. Like I was so naive to the point that I'm at now. So I just look back on it and I feel like, I feel like I would have blown the money, and I hate debt. I hate monthly payments personally.
Same.
I just do. And so, but if you have a fine-tuned plan that you feel like, this can't fail, I kind of see the vision in this, you're kind of looking into a crystal ball kind of thing. And you're like, okay, in the next 6 months, I can generate X amount of, ROI on this business loan and I can have it paid back or something like that. Then maybe I can see the vision for it. I think it just really depends. Like, I mean, is there any room for potential, failure, or am I going to be learning on the way? Am I going to have a big learning curve along the way? That would scare me if I'm learning on the way.
I like what you say, high risk, high reward. I think that's a valid. It really depends. There's so many variables though. Like if you take a loan, but maybe you have, more than enough assets or money somewhere else that could cover that loan, maybe the risk isn't really that high. I don't know. That's why like, this is such a personalized question to you and your situation before you take that loan. The one thought that came to mind is this, I know this business owner that took like a $200,000 loan from a bank to, the goal was really marketing to grow their company. And they took this $200,000 loan and they took a quarter of it. They took 50 grand and they dumped it into Google. And they're thinking, cool, I'm going to do, it was paid SEO essentially, at the top of Google, the
pay-per-click kind of thing.
pay-per-click when you search something at the top of Google, it says, this is a paid result or whatever. And it shows, and they said that they almost got no return on it.
Oh God.
And I just remember sitting there thinking, I'm like, you spent $50,000 before you pulled the plug on that. and it wasn't even your money. Like you just borrowed.
Here's the thing. With Google, and I've tried to run Google ads and YouTube ads, it's so much more complicated than a Facebook ads platform or anything like that. It really is. Like it's a lot more complex. If you don't know what you're doing, if you're not like a wizard, it's essentially like you're flushing it. And Google's like, thank you. And Google eats it all up, and that kind of thing. Like, yeah, that's terrifying to me. So it's like gambling.
Be careful. Yeah, it is gambling. Matthew, be careful.
Yeah. All right, guys. We should probably finish up here. I don't want to get Glenn in trouble, and I might be in trouble too. My phone's been going off. So
I'm my phone. I'm scared to even look at my phone right now.
All right, guys. Well, we'll answer questions that are in the comment section we didn't get to. Thank you guys for being here. Next week I think we're having a guest on. I can't remember.
Is it Chris next week?
Oh yeah. Yeah, Mr. Chris Weir will be here in person.
Woo!
Here at our office. So I'm super excited about that one. That's a really, really, really exciting episode.
Yes.
We've never had a Taco Tuesday guest in person with one of us. So that's a new thing. And Chris is going to be here all day. He's going to stay for Taco Tuesday. So I'm really excited about it. And you guys won't want to miss that. But thanks for being here, guys. And this was fun. We could
watching. Comment below if you have any questions. Christian and I will definitely answer after we're off the live here. So till next Tuesday, you guys.
Adios, amigos.